Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am. There's a lingering question in the super chat question that I'm really anxious to get to here.
We're gonna get to it. I saved the Dallas Cowboys stuff for rapid fire. I didn't want to throw that in the main segment. So, Audric Estime, not named one of the 10 semifinalists for the Doak Walker Award. He tweeted, bet shortly after the semifinalists were announced, and he was not on the list. What do you think it means for this week's game against Stanford?
First of all, I hate that that's the thing now. Why are we just tweeting bet every time someone gets upset? And I thought I didn't like it even more because everyone in Michigan just did it. I was like, but okay, besides the point. I think what you'll see out of Audric Estime is a hungrier version, and that's like even scarier because it feels like that guy is always ready to go, right? And so I think you might see a little bit of a like more mean streak in Audric Estime. I think you might see instead of him hurdling guys, you might see him running through some guys against Stanford this weekend. But, realistically, it's out of his control. He doesn't control the share of snaps and how often he's going to get the ball or whatever. So I think it's more or less what he's going to do with the ball once he actually gets it. And I think you're going to see maybe a bit of a physical guy who's obviously got a little bit more something to prove this weekend in terms of his opinion. I don't think he's got anything to prove. I think he's one of the top backs in the country, but I think that Audric Estime wants to prove to everyone why he belongs on that semifinal list.
I think it means bad news for the Cardinal is what it means.
Especially in that fourth quarter.
That's exactly right. Like, do you want Audric Estime or do you want a ticked off Audric Estime hungry coming out of Thanksgiving weekend? And I think, like Mr. T said, he's going to hurt him real bad. That's what it's going to look like. I am even more anxious to see what this looks like out there now than I was before, because we definitely have not seen the best of Audric Estime for probably the last 5 or 6 weeks, but I'm not saying that is on him, but he has been one of the best running backs in the nation. Like you ask, like Mel Kiper Jr., I think he's still got him, if not at the top of his list, near the top of his list in terms of the NFL running backs in the draft. And how he is not on this, in the semifinals for this award is beyond me. So I do think he's going to take it out on Stanford, and I'm looking forward to seeing it Saturday night. Assuming that I can find Pac-12 networks someplace.
You see the Indy Sailors comment that I love. That's kind of what they're missing this year in terms of the backfield. Him and Tony Pollard together. That reminds me of a little bit younger version of Zeke, and that would be.
I mean, are you really going to get my hopes up?
Ooh, that's what I mean. We already
I went all in, and I sat there and I, watched the first round of that stupid draft, and Mayer was available, and I'm sitting there, like rubbing my rabbit's foot, and it's like, come on, Jerry, pull the trigger, Jerry, let's do it, Jerry. No, he did not, and Mayer, ends up going in the second round of the Raiders, and they end up taking this stupid Schoonmaker from Michigan. Yeah, he's been, well, they took him in the second. They took Mozzie Smith
at the first,
two Michigan guys now that I think about it. It's like neither one of them has been very big impact. So I would, more than love to have Audric Estime with Dallas, and it would be a thunder and lightning type situation. You pair him up with Tony Pollard. That would be
get him on behind Zach Martin for Zach Martin's last couple years.
DK, this might be the smartest thing you've ever said. Estime is too good for Dallas. I mean, that's
they wouldn't utilize him properly.
No, they wouldn't. Figure out a way to screw it up again. Which is more surprising, Jesse, that Notre Dame is 8-3 or that USC is 7-5?
Oh, it's got to be that USC is 7-5. I thought USC would see a little bit of a drop off this season. I didn't think that they would see it in terms of 5 losses. I thought that 2 losses might have been their ceiling in terms of losses, right? Or the floor, I guess you would say. But I have to go with USC. Notre Dame is a bit surprising, but I honestly thought that 9-3 was going to be the lowest that Notre Dame would go. I didn't think that they would have 4 losses. I thought that 3 losses was their bare bottom. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought it was going to be realistically probably going to sit around 2 losses. But yeah, a 5 number for USC is really, really bad considering, you have Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
You have what is considered to be one of the, best offensive coordinators in college right now, who's also the head coach. So I just think it's a waste of a season for USC and ultimately not a good look. And if you listen to Paul Feinbaum, there's people who think that he should be, Riley is really did himself in this year and it could be on the hot seat.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the reigning Heisman Trophy winner that for half the season was looking like he was going to win it again. Where did that campaign end? It ended at Notre Dame Stadium, actually. But like the stretch that they just finished to end the season, I mean, I knew it was going to be tough. It started with Notre Dame, and then they had Utah, they had Cal. They barely beat Cal. If they don't beat Cal, they're in the midst of a 6-game losing streak right now. And that's what's crazy. But, Washington, Oregon, UCLA. I thought that they stood to lose probably 3 of those games. 5, the fact that they have lost 5 of their last 6, and the one win is by 1 point, and they had to come from behind to beat Arizona as well by 2 points. I mean, Arizona's been a nice, kind of upstart, surprising story and all that kind of stuff. But I am completely shocked that USC is 7-5 with everything they had. And you thought, especially coming into the season, like maybe as the season started to play out and you saw how bad that defense was, maybe you could have seen that. But you'd think that they would have been better coming into the season. They went out and got Bear Alexander from, you would have thought that the defense was going to be better. And I'm completely shocked, because like you said, I still thought that the floor for Notre Dame was probably 10-2. Right now, they're only, 1 win off that. So I'm completely shocked that USC is where they are right now. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Michigan fans are threatening a boycott of Gameday in Ann Arbor because ESPN had the gall to report on the school's cheating scandal.
It is just another day in the Michigan saga. It's just like, I'm so tired. Like I had a buddy today sending me stuff that apparently now there's, people looking at Ohio State and their Venmos and, this people a part of their video. It's like, guys, just stop with the whole victim part of this thing. You messed up. You need to accept your consequences. Yes. And it's time to stop diverting or deflecting onto other people. Just accept it. That's all that I want at this point is just accept it because you talk to every Michigan person and it's just another day is another way of trying to find something to deflect or, divert onto. And it's just accept it. Stop being ridiculous. Stop being babies and just own up.
It's just amazing that, they know that this happened. Everyone has within the program, they have acknowledged that it's happened. The fact that Michigan dropped, going to court, because new evidence came up. It's like they know that they were
plea
caught.
Deal.
That's exactly right. But the fans can't accept it, and they want to play this whole victim card, and they are just so soft with everything they do. And it's like they, Michigan tries to act, and Jim Harbaugh tries to act like he's so hard, but he's soft, and they're all soft, and they're like you can't be hard when you're playing the victim game. I'm sorry. It's that and they just are acting like the total victim in this whole thing. And the fact that they're so soft about it, it's hilarious actually. And I would like to see, since they are threatening this boycott, if it actually happens. Will College Game Day go on and it'll be like the quietest on-campus College Game Day show ever. It would be kind of funny, but I would like to see if they actually follow through. And my guess is they won't because they're soft and, they're just threatening.
Yeah, it's just all hard. Smoke.
Yeah, that's what it is. Florida State fell out of the top 4 in the college football playoff rankings after the Jordan Travis injury last week. Fair or foul? They fell out.
That's foul. I think you have to continue to place a team based off of what they've done and not what you think they're going to do going forward. Listen, Florida State's got 2 games left. One's going to be
Florida this week.
Florida, and then they're obviously going to play Louisville
yep.
in the ACC championship. If you really have doubts about Florida State, then let them see what happens in the Louisville game, but they shouldn't be punished for what you anticipate is going to happen. I think that you should be rewarded to what you've done to date. And we don't know. What if Florida State has a stud backup quarterback? Obviously, he's not going to be as good as Jordan Travis, but you just don't know. And so I don't think it's fair to be judged off of what you're anticipated or what's believed to happen rather than what you've already proven to happen.
There was an argument to leave Ohio State out of the college football playoff when they were down to Cardale Jones.
Yeah, and the guy won the natty for him.
And they won the national championship. I think you have to at least wait until
That's
you
a really good
see
point.
what Rodemaker can do on the field before you knock them like this. Everything they've done to this point says that they deserve to be where they were in the 4 spot, and now Washington has passed them up. They haven't even taken the field since the injury, and I think that they deserve to stay there. Now, like there are other games that are going to play out as well, but obviously if Washington wins out, what happens if Washington wins out and Florida State wins out? Would they move them back in? What's going to happen there? We know that Ohio State, Michigan, one of them is going to end up with 1 loss, but I don't think you can dock them. Let them play a game at least before you knock them down. There's no reason to, because again, there's precedent to show that teams could, it is still a team sport where 22 guys take the field. I realize the quarterback is the most important position on the field, but it is still one player at this point. At least let it play out and see what happens this week before you start moving them down. I think it's completely foul. I think they moved them down too soon. Do you buy or sell Louisville as a college football playoff team if they go 12-1?
So I saw something the other day. I hope I can potentially bring back up these rankings, but basically it was like, say Louisville wins, say Oregon beats Washington, Alabama beats Georgia. Now you're stuck with all these 1-loss teams. It's like, who ultimately deserves to get in? I mean, I think that's the case. If you're going to play these championship games and you say that they have meaning and that they carry weight, I think that a 1-loss ACC championship in Louisville deserves to get in as long as there's not 4 undefeated teams ahead of them, the 4 conference champion undefeated teams ahead of them. Because if you say that these games are meaningful and you say that they have weight on this Final 4, then they should be rewarded for winning the ACC and being a 1-loss team at the end of the day. So I do think that Louisville would deserve to be in the playoff if they won the ACC.
We know that either Ohio State or Michigan are going to make the playoff. If Alabama ends up beating Georgia, then they're in. And, is Georgia also going to be in, depending on how
that's what it would come down to. Is it 1-loss Georgia or 1-loss Louisville? Who's
and don't forget, you've still got Texas that's in the mix that, of course, has the win over Alabama. And if Texas runs the table, are you going to leave them out because if they end up with only 1 loss, that means they've won the Big 12 as well. I just don't think I think there's too much in front of Louisville for them to make it in. You're going to see multiple teams from either the SEC or the Big 10, most likely. And then that's going to leave you with 2 other spots or, 2 other spots. And, again, like if Ohio State and Michigan both get in, at least Alabama or Georgia is also getting in. So that leaves you with 1 spot, basically. And I think that there's too much for Louisville to have to climb to get over all that, even if they win out at this point.
So let me ask you this. So there's going to be an undefeated Big Ten champ in the playoff. Like I can almost 100% say that. So that's 1 of 4 spots taken away, right? Say that Washington beats Oregon again. So then you have 2 spots taken, 2 undefeated teams, 2 conference champions. And then you're looking at a 1-loss, maybe a 1-loss Texas team or a 1-loss Florida State team or a 1-loss Michigan or Ohio State team. Louisville would hold the trump card above all those 1-loss teams to me because they're a 1-loss team and a conference champion. All those other 1-loss teams had their shot and they lost in the conference championship. And so I think Louisville would see a good jump of a lot of these teams, because again, if you say that these conference championships are meaningful and you say that you have to play them, then that Louisville should be rewarded for that. And if there's a bunch of other one-loss teams like Louisville, they hold the trump card. They won a conference championship. And so I think there's a very good possibility, if I'm Louisville, I think there's a good, like a 50-50 shot that they could end up in that 4 spot at the end of the day, depending on, who loses. You can't, if you're Louisville, you want all the undefeated teams to remain undefeated. And you want all the one-loss teams to keep losing.
You've got to remember the other side of this is it's not just that Louisville has one loss. Like all these other teams have quote unquote good losses. They've lost to good teams, right? Like when you go down the line here, so far, Michigan or Ohio State, one of them is going to lose to the other one. Oregon has lost to Washington, number 4 in the playoff right now. Texas has lost to, Texas, I guess. Yeah, Texas has lost to Oklahoma. So that's like probably the worst loss of all of them, but it's still not a bad loss because Oklahoma, is not wretched, I guess, compared to Pittsburgh is my point. My whole point was Louisville has lost to Pittsburgh. And, so that counts against Louisville. It's not that they lost to a good team. They lost to a horrible team. So I think that that's going to be a factor as well. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think losing to Pittsburgh and with the quality that they're going to be measured against with those other teams, I just think that it's going to be too much. I think best case scenario, Louisville ends up sitting like in the 5th or 6th spot when it's all said and done.
I was going to say, I feel like they're going to be the first or second team out, assuming they win the ACC. And, Josh, you bring up a good point. Yeah, it would be a win without Jordan Travis against Florida State. They can't control that. Their job is just to get there and to win the game. They can't control what's in front of them. They can only control, essentially the game itself. And so, again, I'm not for punishing teams just because, I'm not for Florida State being dropped in the rankings without Jordan Travis, and I'm not for Louisville, essentially an asterisk next to the game because Jordan Travis wasn't playing. It's just that's what it is. Everyone goes through injuries at some point. It's just it so happens that obviously the quarterback injury is more prominent compared to others.
But that would also be their best win of the season. Florida State without Jordan Travis, if it gets to that point.
I think Notre Dame's more impressive than a win against Florida State without their starting quarterback.
You think so? Even with Notre Dame sitting there with 3 losses right now?
Because I think Notre Dame is what Louisville did offensively against what is probably considered a top 5, top 10 defense, I think was impressive what Louisville did.
Yeah, that's true too. Tommy Guns was saying something earlier about now would be a good time for his question. I'm not sure which one. I used 1 or 2 of your questions earlier, so I don't know if you tuned in or out, but
we'll never be able to appease Tommy Guns, baby.
I know. There's always another question. It's got to be in there. So the Cowboys and Lions are, of course, the Thanksgiving Day tradition. Lions get the early game, Cowboys get the middle game, and of course they've added a late game a few years back. Do you like having them on every year, or would you like to see more of a rotation?
Essentially at this point, I enjoy Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I should say I enjoy that they play on Thanksgiving. I don't necessarily love their performance on Thanksgiving, but honestly, hear me out here, because every team's got to play a Thursday game at some point in the season. If the Cowboys got to play a Thursday game, I'm on board with having it be on Thanksgiving because it feels like it's not your typical crappy kind of, Thursday game. I like being able to be home with you and watching the game and eating, leftover Thanksgiving food. And that's the thing is if I'm going to watch football on Thanksgiving, it's cool being able to see my team. I think it adds more to kind of the holiday itself. I enjoy Thanksgiving because the Cowboys play. Again, it's not necessarily how they play, but the fact that they are playing on Thanksgiving.
When I was your age, I still loved having the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, but I am more than twice your age at this point, and it has become the way they have performed in recent years. I told
you earlier they're 1-11 against the spread the last 12 years.
That's exactly right.
So that's underperformance.
That says it all. I am tired of being miserable on Thanksgiving watching my team play for the sake of the rest of the country's entertainment. I am
Yeah.
just tired of it at this point.
Everyone
The
else is just
Lions,
hanging out, enjoying
yeah,
themselves, and it becomes very stressful on Thanksgiving.
at least the Lions are good now. So, whatever they give us tomorrow should be better than what we're used to seeing, But the Cowboys, I can take it or leave it. I'm preparing for a miserable experience tomorrow, watching them play the Commanders.
First time this
So,
year, Commanders, one of
yep,
two.
that's right. That's right. Did you know that Ron Rivera only has 3 winning seasons as a head coach in his career?
Did not know that, but he gets a lot of hype for those Cam Newton years.
He does. He does. And he's basically turned those Cam Newton years into the career that he has right now. So speaking of which, another super chat from Tyler. Your favorite Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving game of all time and why? I'll give mine first. Mine is actually, the redhead, the ginger, who's been catching all the grief on NBC Notre Dame broadcast the last few years. 1994, Jason Garrett was better than Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving Day, backing up Troy Aikman. Aikman was out. Jason Garrett led the Cowboys to win over Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers. So that is
very unexpected Thanksgiving delight.
Yep, that is probably the one that stands out to me.
Oh man. Tyler, I thought long and hard about this question, and I don't have as good of an encyclopedia memory like the other person on this podcast does right now. So I have a hard time remembering
I won't
games.
say it's completely encyclopedic, but
I mean, you remember a lot of things. I can barely remember who they played the last 5 years, I guess is what I'm getting at. And so I started looking
Vince only remembers things if there's food on the line. So.
Right. So I started looking basically from what I could remember. To be honest with you, I took this question as probably what was my least enjoyable game. And I would say there's a good list. The 2015 game against the Panthers hurt. Romo threw 3 interceptions, and that was his last Thanksgiving game ever, actually, as it turned out. The game against the Bills was miserable a couple years ago on Thanksgiving. It felt like Josh Allen was 100% passing and also ran for just about every first down. Losing to the Raiders in double overtime 2 years ago really sucked because it was just penalties everywhere. That was
horrible.
That's one of my least favorite ones.
Yeah, that's one of the worst ones ever, that Raiders game.
That Raiders game was just brutal because it was just flag after flag after flag after flag after flag, and it was so ticky-tacky and touchy. So I hated that game. If we're gonna I think I'm just gonna have to go with every year they beat the Commanders because I love when they beat divisional opponents on Thanksgiving. They beat them in 2016. Another one that came to mind was a 20-19 win over Miami. I can't remember what year that was, but for some reason that one came to mind. So yeah, I think
it's amazing the ones I don't remember. That's the thing.
So I just I think it shows kind of, again, I enjoy the Cowboys playing on Thanksgiving, but they play so poor on Thanksgiving. And fortunately, the poor games are what really sticks in my mind. And that Raiders game 2 years ago was just it felt like the tip of the iceberg. It was just horrible watching that game. It was miserable watching that game.
I concur on that. That's for sure. So Tommy Guns, here's one from Tommy Guns. If you could buy your dream truck, which brand would it be? Dodge, Ram, Chevy, Nissan, Toyota, other. No one's in on the F-150s. I don't. I'd probably just go Chevy. I guess I've always been partial to the Chevys. No real reason. I've never owned a pickup myself. The closest thing, my dad had an El Camino, back in the day when I was in high school. But I guess he does have a pickup truck right now, but he didn't have it when I was living at home. So I would just go Chevy. I would go Chevy.
I'm going Ford. It's not on his list, but I'm going Ford, baby. And then second would be Dodge. I don't know why, but that's where I'm at.
Dodge Ram. Okay. Sounds good. And finally, Archer 452. Happy Wednesday. This year, I'm thankful for the beat down the cheaters in Ann Arbor are going to catch on Saturday. Go Bucks. Beat TTUN. What is TTUN? What is it?
That
Like?
team up north.
Oh, that team up north. Okay. I guess I'm not from Ohio, so
I see it way too much to not know what it is.
I'm sure you do. Like around Cleveland, do they have any M's crossed out like they do on the Ohio State campus?
No, they don't actually. It's funny. I was thinking about it. I was like, I've never seen like you would maybe see like potentially see like interstate signs that might have like an M crossed out on it as you get towards Columbus, but I haven't seen it. And I'm not in Columbus this year, so
Yep. Tommy included the Ford on the list belatedly, it looks like. So, he said Ford comes with a heated tailgate, so your hands warm pushing it home in the winter. Now pushing in the winter is something I remember because whether it was the El Camino or the conversion van my parents had that I drove, I used to run out of gas all the time because I never had money to put gas in the tank. And fortunately, I was the one, like giving rides and stuff like that. So I typically had at least one, if not two other guys to help me push when we ran out of gas. So you remember running out of gas from, you did it once in your high school days?
Yeah, I ran out of gas. I was close to a gas station though. Just had to get that bad boy right around the corner.
Yeah. All right. Well, that
twice
is
actually. I ran out of gas in Toledo one time as well.
Oh.
And I had to. Then the running out of gas in Toledo is not fun. There is, and it was like, okay. This is gonna get me on a little bit of a tangent, but I've never seen. I think Toledo has to be for the sample size per what is it, capita or whatever. The most
talking about
in the middle of the summer, the most broken down cars I've ever seen was Toledo, Ohio. And it was funny. I was making fun of it. And then like a week later, I ran out of gas and I had to walk to the gas station, buy a gas tank, fill it up, and walk it back to my car.
Not funny. Running out of gas sucks no matter where you are, what time of year it is. There are worse places, there are worse places than others to run out of gas. I
almost remember running out of gas coming back from Wisconsin from a women's basketball game. I think it was Monday night. It was the night Brett Favre's father died.
In that blizzard?
In that blizzard. And we were so scared we were going to run out of gas in that blizzard.
We almost did. We just made it to the exit and got off and managed to fill it up. That was, oh boy, that was a night. All right. Well, hopefully no one's driving in blizzards. Make sure if you are driving, you're driving with a full tank of gas as much as possible. Be careful out there if you're traveling this Thanksgiving. And don't forget, IB Countdown to Kickoff will drop. The YouTube version will drop Friday night. The podcast audio version will drop Saturday morning. We've got more shows coming up as well on Friday. I know Brian is going to have a live show on Friday. Ryan's got a recruiting show that'll be popping up on Friday as well. So not sure. I don't think we have anything necessarily planned for Thanksgiving, but we still got plenty of shows for you this Thanksgiving weekend. So everybody have a great Thanksgiving weekend, and we will talk to you on IB Countdown to Kickoff. Vince will be with Jesse and I for that coming up this weekend as well. Enjoy the holiday. We will talk to you later this weekend. IB Countdown to Kickoff.